He never thought of himself as beautiful before, but he was never this conscious. He never felt this ugly. He wasn't a fan of self-pity, so why now? Maybe it was because he was at his breaking point, or maybe because Taehyung was the only man who made him feel like he was the most beautiful person in the world and then suddenly found someone better than him. Jungkook chuckled lifelessly at himself. How could he even think that Taehyung will be content with him? After all, he was nothing compared to the older. Jungkook glanced at Taehyung, who was sitting with Era in his arms, cooing at the baby who was quietly sleeping. He avoided his gaze when the older looked at him. He wasn't used to seeing the older at home for too long, and he didn't know how to feel about the fact that Taehyung chose to stay with him instead of working. He knew how strict the older was when it came to his time, but look at him now, wasting it on Jungkook and Era. Jungkook, the younger's breathing increased at the way Taehyung called his name, his mind returning to that fateful night, and he couldn't stop himself from bursting. Why don't you just go back to work? I can take care of Era, he snapped, walking towards the older to take the baby from his arms. Taehyung just watched with lonely eyes as the younger left to stay in his room again. A few minutes later, a knock was heard outside Jungkook's door before it creaked open. Taehyung's head peeked out from behind the door, carefully observing the younger's reaction to his presence, and when Jungkook didn't show any, he started walking towards him. His steps were so quiet, so cautious, as if he was walking on thin ice. He kneeled by the younger, who just disregarded his presence. A sad sigh left Taehyung's mouth as Jungkook buried all his attention in their baby. I'm really sorry, Jungkook. I know it's hard to believe, but I never intended for everything to come to this. I was just angry and so jealous, and I don't know, I was feeling so much and I was confused because that was the first time that ever happened to me. I know this may sound like an excuse, but please listen to me. I won't stop apologizing until you realize how sincere I am. Taehyung let out another sigh when Jungkook didn't even spare him a glance. Please don't leave me, Jungkook. This time, Jungkook turned his head to look at him, and Taehyung's shoulders stiffened at the thought of Jungkook finally speaking to him again after so long. If you're like this because of that, then you don't have to worry. I'll keep my word. I won't leave until our contract ends. Taehyung shook his head, horrified. That's not what I mean. Please leave, Hyung, Jungkook pleaded. No, listen to me, please. This has nothing to do with the damn contract. I just want to, please, Hyung, Jungkook interrupted, his voice wavering. Just leave me alone. I'm begging you. Taehyung ignored the unpleasant feeling in his chest, slowly standing up to leave just like Jungkook requested, but not after saying, I don't care about that contract anymore, Jungkook. I just want you. He walked towards the door, not noticing the tears swelling up in Jungkook's eyes. Jungkook was trying to tone down his sobs, his face wet with tears, when the door suddenly opened again. His sobs turned louder when he saw his friends by the door, worry present in their eyes. Due to the loudness of his cries, Era woke up and started crying as well. Jungkook didn't know what to do. He tried to calm the baby, but he couldn't when his sobs just turned louder than before. It was so hard. The crushing weight in his chest was so heavy. Jimin took Era in his arms, calming the baby until she fell back to sleep, while Taehyung ran straight to Jungkook, who cried in his arms. Your husband called us. He said you need us. What the f is going on? Jungkook's sobs were loud, but he still heard the sound of his heart breaking. Hours passed and he just cried there, in the arms of his friends, without saying anything but it hurts, Taehyung. It hurt so bad, Jungkook fell asleep after crying so much. His eyes were puffy and his nose was red, and his friends couldn't help but feel sad yet angry at the same time. They were confused because the younger never said anything. When they left the younger's room, their eyebrows raised at the sight of Taehyung closely watching Jungkook's door with red eyes as well. Taehyung walked towards him, taking in the guilty look in Taehyung's eyes before he let out a disbelieving huff. "What did you do?" he asked. Jimin watched in confusion, tilting his head to the side as Taehyung's lips trembled. "With all due respect, sir, our friend was crying his eyes out and he wouldn't say anything. I know that you know what is happening, so tell us if you want us to help," Taehyung demanded, and Taehyung gulped at the venom in his voice. He explained everything, from the time he got jealous to the argument. He didn't leave out anything, letting all his love and guilt out. He never thought he would do this, let alone to his employees. He never even let his feelings out to Namjoon. But these were Jungkook's friends, and they might help. "Please forgive me for what I'm about to say, but you're such an asshole. You are so stupid. I wonder why Jungkook is still staying here with you, because if I were him, I would have left you already. I wouldn't talk to you ever again," Taehyung shouted. Taehyung expected to hear something like that, but that didn't mean it hurt any less. Because he knew it was true. "I don't know if you are just ignorant or egoistic, but have you ever thought about everything that Jungkook has ever done for you from the start? He was willing to do anything for you, and you repay him with this? I don't even want him to forgive you, ever," Jimin added. "Don't say that. I was drunk and hurt at that time. And I know I was wrong. That's why I apologized, and I want to know how I can make it up to him." Taehyung closed his eyes and sighed. "Please help me win him back." Jimin and Taehyung looked at each other before raising their eyebrows at him again. "And why would we do that?" Taehyung asked. Taehyung fluttered his eyes open and stared straight into their eyes. His face held a serious yet desperate look that even the two knew how sincere he was when he replied, "Because I love him." Jimin scrutinized him for a minute or two, before crossing his arms over his chest. "Then what are you willing to do?" Taehyung didn't need to think about it. His mouth just opened on its own. "Anything." "Oh, the fall of a brick wall." Jungkook gaped at seeing his in-laws at their doorsteps, greeting him with huge grins before stealing it away. They played with the baby, cooing at her when she let out a high-pitched laugh, before looking back at the couple who awkwardly stood together. "How's everything going?" Mr. Kim asked. "Yeah, is this security giving you a hard time?" Mrs. Kim added, using a cooing voice as she continued playing with Era. "A little. But she's mostly quiet and sleeping, so we're good," Jungkook answered. "Is your husband helping you with?" "I hope he is," Mr. Kim asked while staring at Taehyung. "Yes, he actually stops crying every morning, so Taehyung is a big help," Jungkook replied once again. His in-laws nodded in satisfaction while Taehyung just glanced at him with loving yet longing eyes. The old couple stayed for an hour before leaving, and when they finally left, Jungkook started ignoring Taehyung's presence again. Taehyung stared owlishly at how Jungkook remained seated on a spot on the couch in front of the TV. He sat beside him, letting a smile stretch his lips when Jungkook didn't whine or move away. The older rested his back against the couch, sighing with a toothy grin, and even if you told him he looked stupid, he wouldn't even care. "You know what, I had a lot of things I never got to say to you," Taehyung admitted, earning Jungkook's attention. The younger looked at him, questioning, and he frowned when Taehyung just stared at him again without continuing. "What? I will tell you if you're actually listening," Jungkook scoffed, not speaking afterward. Taehyung chuckled at his cuteness.